In this video, we're going to go over the top 6 heroes to main in Season 5. If you want to give yourself the best competitive advantage going into the start of the season, these are the characters that you should be playing based on the changing metas at the end of last season and the new changes at the start of this one. Now, if you want to go on a 10-game win streak, you got to press that subscribe button. And if you don't, I know you're going to get a red carpet. So, I warned you ahead of time. Now, the first character that we got to talk about is Brig. And while Brig didn't get any direct changes going into Season 5, Brig has been on an absolute tear for the past couple of months. There's a lot that this character just simply adds. Survivability, the ability to make plays with your ultimate, which actually is very freaking powerful for both defensive, enabling your bodyguard use, and going and transitioning to an aggressive playstyle, depending on advantage. But more than anything, in ranked, Brig is insane at the bodyguard playstyle. And especially with snipers taking a hit, especially Widowmaker, now there's going to be a lot more combination of brawl and dive, and Brig is good in both of those situations, and this means that she's going to be better because one of the few characters in the roster that she could do nothing about was a really good Widow. And a lot of the characters that are going to see play, a lot of characters that she would want to bodyguard, like characters like Cassidy or even other hit scan DPS, these characters are going to be able to be protected by Brig, and you can stand adjacent to them, keep them alive and sustain through a dive, and that's going to get you a ton of value. Also, just in general, the combination of Ana and Cass and Brig looks like a strong cornerstone of a ranked meta composition that I would highly suggest as an anti-dive style of composition, so that's why I definitely have to suggest Brig here. Next up, we do got to talk about Diva, and Diva was already really good in the previous season, but especially with some characters getting slightly tweaked like Junker Queen, it seems like Diva makes more and more sense. Not because that character is going to be bad, because I still think Junker Queen's going to be just fine, but it's just that the raw power level of a lot of the tanks in the game are low enough where Diva is kind of flying to the surface. Diva has always been a very powerful tank, but in recent times, she is strong on mainly the maps that have high ground to abuse. But I think now, if you're really good at Diva, I think you could really play Diva in a lot of situations. She's very good with Zens. She's good at peeling. She's good at shutting down hit scans. She's good at playing with tracers. I really think that Diva just has a lot going for her, and she's also one of the few tanks that can shut down Echoes and Pharahs. And now, characters that were about 50-50 or like good, but just not the most broken thing, now that the power level of tanks are down a little bit and more in line with everything else, Diva shines brighter. And I do think that with the change of a lot of these poke maps, especially the long distance poke maps around Widowmaker not being as good anymore, I'm curious if Diva would not fill some amount of that playtime, because I do think that without a sniper as strong as Widowmaker, all of a sudden, Diva actually makes a lot of sense on some parts of these Sigma long distance maps, so definitely something to keep in mind. Next off, we do gotta talk about Sombra, and Sombra has just been getting better and better, and I think that she's even better this season than she was last season. Sombra's kind of insane right now. The combination of being able to consistently punish out-of-position players, tanks in particular, you can just kind of make their lives a living hell, constantly hacking them, and they can't really do a lot about you. You can shut down a ton of tanks. In addition to that, your EMP is incredibly powerful, as everyone knows, and really, Sombra just is a character that when you start to learn the character properly, you're going to be this constant form of pressure that has a amazing ultimate win condition that kind of just wins fights by itself. Now, in playing Sombra, you have to find the balance between trying to shut down whatever you're playing Sombra for, whether that's a Doom, a Ball, or whatever the case may be, and keeping your uptime high. Because if you're taking away all your uptime just to try to shut down someone, you're wasting the majority of your uptime, and that means that you're kind of out of the fight, putting your team in like a 4v5. So you need to find a healthy balance. Make sure that you're not over trying to counter something at the cost of not doing anything else, because unless you're really just making them useless, then you're gonna be the only one that's useless. Next up, we do gotta talk about number 3 on our list, which is actually Mercy. And I know, you're going to be like, what the hell, Mercy out of all other supports, but you got to think about it. With Widowmaker falling down, Hanzo still pretty strong against most 200 HP heroes, so he's probably going to see play, but realistically, the long distance characters on the poke compositions, right, because poke is still going to exist, Sigma is still pretty powerful, and I do think that while that composition isn't going to be quite as strong, it's still going to be strong, but I think that there's going to be other competitive options in the place of Widow for some of the time, a good percentage of the time. And I really think those two options are going to be Ashe and Sojourn. Mercy plays amazing with both Ashe and Sojourn. I think Mercy's Zen compositions around Sigma with an Ashe or Sojourn is amazing. Being able to pocket these characters and just add so much value to their poke is just really, really strong. And of course, Echo is pretty strong right now, and while I know that there are counters that exist, of course, a good Echo can play around them, and I do think on many maps, Echo Mercy is really, really strong. So I think overall, Mercy is just a really good pick as the best support to enable these 3 DPS, and I really don't think that you should be sleeping on Mercy at all right now. Now, number 2 on our list, we do got to talk about a tank that I just don't think sees enough play, and it's Ramattra. Ramattra has been good, and he's another example of a tank that's just kind of like just good enough, 50-50, slightly above average win percentage, because he doesn't really have any bad matchups, nor does he have any dominant matchups, or at least not as much as some other characters. He's just a very flexible character, and I think that that allows for a lot of skill expression. I think he's one of the best tanks to play if you're a tank player that doesn't want to play the rock, paper, scissors game all the time. Like, you don't want to just keep swapping tank to try to beat whatever they are. Just play Ramattra, and I think you're pretty good against just about everything. And in addition to all of that combined, now that Junker Queen isn't quite as strong, I think that you can justify actually playing a character like this rather than just playing the most broken thing. Because that's why Diva and Ramattra didn't make as much sense before, because it's like, why not just play the character that's far and away the most broken thing? She's still very strong, Junker Queen, by the way, which we're going to talk about in our tier list, but she isn't as powerful as a surefire just slam dunk as she was before, so other characters make more sense, and I think Ramattra is one of them that is actually a winner. And of course, Ramattra just plays really well with some of the characters that are on this list, including our number 1 pick, which I just think is going to be very, very strong in Season 5, and definitely a character you should be practicing with right now, Cassidy. Now, we did mention him before in the Brig section, but Cassidy just got the most ridiculous buff, like, period. The fact that he can slow enemies with his grenade now, and it has a really, really far range, is crazy. Turning off movement abilities is also crazy. I just think it's just really, really powerful as an anti-dive, anti-mobility strategy, which is really a lot of what Cassidy is afraid of dealing with. And if you especially combine it with the Brig, like I said earlier, you just have the cornerstone of a really, really strong anti-dive strategy that can kind of take down anything. I think that the only bad matchups to Cassidy are really the pocketed Ashe, Sojourn, and a Hanzo. These are the ones that are like the most problematic for the character. But I do think that there's ways in which to shut these characters down, whether it's with a poke or whether it's with a character like a Diva playing with a Cass, or just in a lot of other ways, maybe a Ramattra, whatever the case may be. The tanks are mainly dealing with that, and then the Cassidy is shutting down the backline, preventing any sort of dive. Or you could even have hybrid compositions that are playing a combination of a character that is trying to shut down these Ashe Sojourns. I could even see like Cass Hanzo, something along those lines. So really, I think that Cassidy shores up a ton of weaknesses, and then you can fight another composition within that because you don't have to play around nearly as much stuff. Now, this doesn't mean that Cassidy can't be shut down by divers, but it does mean that he has a lot of tools, better tools, to shut down many of these mobility-heavy tanks and DPS than he did before, and I think that's a really, really big deal. So grind Cassidy, make sure that you're practicing with this character. I highly, highly suggest it because it looks like he's going to be one of the best ranked options for this season, but definitely let me know what hero you're going to be maining in Season 5. If it's different, smash the like, subscribe if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you next time.